because we're going to go straight to the risk integrations tab, which is obviously what we want to do today to get that level 5. And we've tried to make it so that everything is a really simple step-by-step guide. So the first thing is to select a site. And obviously we've just created our site. I've got many sites. I'm going to just go ahead and grab one of these Canadian sites that I've got. And so I've done step 1. I now need to do step 2, although I've already done it before, but we're going to do it again together. And this is the really critical step that Dave was just talking about, which is, you know, traditionally people might say winter working calendar or rain calendar, or it's focused more on the weather type itself. But what we want to do in EHAB to make it a more granular analysis is we actually want to build rules that are relevant to the activity types themselves. Because as you can see from the kind of the colorful charts on the right hand side, without going into exact detail on every single category, you can clearly see that my mitigated concrete has a very different risk profile to my earthworks, which even has a different one to cranes and lifting, etc. So let's just look at the asphalt for a second. What this graph is telling me is that based on these collection of rules, in January, for example, I'm going to have 78% probability of downtime, which from a working days, you know, just assuming a 5-day calendar is 18 days. Now, you might say that this rule is wrong, or it's too sensitive or not sensitive enough. And so the beauty of kind of the way that we've set this platform up is I can just quickly apply this rule, change it. Bear in mind, this is Ottawa, so, you know, 0 degrees looks like it's pretty chilly there. And you can see that the risk is immediately reflected. Or maybe I go -30 and we're going to completely remove the risk from that chart. So we give you a default set of rules, and those default rules are based on a lot of British standards and also expert interviews with clients. But we always recommend you guys to create your own rules, or at least review them so that you're confident with, because it's very important. This setup step that we're doing now flows all the way through into the results that you're going to get from OPC and the QSRA run that you do. So actually each activity type here that we look at and select, this will become a probabilistic calendar in OPC. And so it's really fundamental that you get this right. Well, or at least you review it, because there was, you know, thresholds here will flow through. So that's step 2. Now step 3 is import a plan. So it's really as simple as I'm just going to grab one of my demo plans here. Where is it? I've got my sample plan. So sample test road project, that's good enough. And the process of importing the plan, the real benefit of doing this is you can unlock all of lots of other reports within the system by uploading the plan. We're actually about to launch a feature where you don't need to upload your plan and you can just get the calendars and bring them straight to OPC. But for now, the key workflow is I need to import my plan. And then the final step before we can unlock and start doing the actual OPC integration is assigning categories. So if you ever encounter this error message, you just need to click manual categorization, wait for the activities to load, and then go back to the automatic categorization. So really the point of the automatic categorization is that I can find and look at any activity codes that are already on the plan. In this case, I've got a number of existing activities, and I can then match them to the activities we were just looking at, the activity types we were just looking at. So I'll just do a couple as an example, because we're not going to go through the process entirely here. But you can see basically I'm selecting based on, you know, what is the code type, and I can then click apply. And what this then is going to do is match all of the activities in the plan that I selected based on the selections I just made. So now we've got 3 categories in use on the right hand side, and that's been assigned to 3 activities in total. And so now I'll hand over to Dave in just a second, but all we need to then do is select the risk software. So we're going to go Oracle Primavera Cloud, and then there's going to be a video here. I just need to update it. But you can then generate the calendars and pull all this data into OPC. But the key thing to remember is whatever you've selected on this screen, so cables, cladding, etc., there's now going to be those calendars associated to those activities. All right, Dave, do you want to share your screen and take it away and show the rest of the integration?
Sure. You see my screen?
Not yet. Now we are.
Yeah. So here I'm inside of Primavera Cloud. I'm inside of a particular project. I've come to the activities page inside of the schedule app. I'm going to be, spend a bit of time in the risk register and risk analysis of the risk app as well. But this is how you get to them. So this is a schedule that I could have either created directly here in Primavera Cloud, or I could have imported from P6 or connected directly to P6. Josh has just shown a technique for mapping your codes. This is activity codes I'm talking about here to the weather categories. Another approach is I can actually create a code that matches that category exactly, right? So I've got in here, I've just called it EHAB weather. You can see alongside my activities, I've just got a bit of coloring on here to help them stand out a little. I've got a wind farm in this particular case where I've got a number of different turbines. I've got transportation, installation of the blades and testing for each turbine, for example. And I've just added a curtain on here to show when is the key winter period, which is just no more than a visualization of a piece of the Gantt in here. So this is my my activities page. I'm going to just pop up my risk register into another tab. Just going to keep the activities page open for a moment. So you can see at the minute, I've got no risks here in the risk register. So this is where, the typical process would be people would create a risk for wind, create one for rain, etc., and then have to do all the mapping. But instead of that, so I'm just in the same place where Josh was a moment ago. I would grab Oracle Primavera Cloud and I would say generate the calendar. I should have pointed out here that I've just selected, there's a whole load of different categories. Josh had some of them up. I've got some different ones here. These are basically just the particular ones that I've used that match, the code, what six of them in this particular case. Generate that calendar. So it's basically, for those 6 categories, I get a message here to say that export is initiated. I can now download this this file. You can see it's exactly the same as the one I did in a little test. I am in risk after all. And then that is in exactly the format where you can import it. So we've got in Excel, you can create an import template and then do the import. So the work that we've done together is to, I'm in the wrong folder here, just make sure that we've got the why did that not open? Oh, I think it's just because I've got it still open in Excel. Yeah. That's what the import file looks like. Maybe I should have showed that quickly. Yeah, I found quite a lot since we moved to SharePoint. The ability to share stuff is completely dependent on if it's open on your. I'm sure we never used to get that before we moved to SharePoint. But here I've got a number of risks that are now added into the risk register, 6 in this particular case. As you can see, as we mentioned, the risks aren't cold, rain and wind, etc. Right? They're things like site clearance and roofing. If I click on any of these, so we have basically created the risks, and we've created all of this this data in here. For example, so for April of 2025, somewhere between 0 and 4 days, triangular distribution. A lot more downtime in Jan 2026. This is the data that people would be typically trying to estimate and input themselves. But it's now data driven based on at your site. We've got this little feature in here as well. Now it takes a little bit of, it's actually running a mini Monte Carlo simulation at this point as well. It has just completed. Let me just show it. So this is showing you, what that, I think I was on the roofing one. Yeah, roofing looks like. If I jump forward to next year in particular, we've got a full year. The darker coloring here in Jan, Feb, and December in particular, you know, you can see I'm 50 to 75% of the time I'm going to be down. So it's like a visual way of looking at that calendar as well, and you can get a feel. And this can be useful if you're helping explain to others in particular. You know, what does that mean when you run a risk analysis? You know, you imagine you've got an activity that is, you know, starting on the 11th of May and it's 5 days. Well, now you're suddenly going to have on one iteration at least the 13th blanked out, so it would move over to the next week, right? This is all that Monte Carlo simulation is doing based on those risks that we've now generated in a data-driven manner. This will impact my my simulation. And there's doing the connection, right? So I've got just a slightly different view here, where I've got the activities grouped by categories. When you're assigning risks to activities, you can either be here in the risk register and go to the impacted activities and assign them. Mine were actually in the Excel import file as well, which is why they're already there. Or you can do it from here. So I could, you know, sort by roofing. I could quickly grab all of these activities that I've got categorized under roofing, and I could say I want to apply a particular risk, and it's the roofing risk, right? I've already got it on in this case, as we saw. But this approach, I think, makes it a lot easier to make sure you've got the right risks on the correct activities. And then, you know, it makes the steps ahead of running a risk analysis a lot simpler. Let me just make sure. I think that is all good. So obviously we're here looking at just weather, but you know, if you had your traditional risks, your threats and opportunities in your risk register, these weather risks could be just getting imported and added. It's like an additional layer on top of your threats and opportunities as well.
There's a question in the chat here, Dave. So Niels asks, just out of curiosity, why did you opt for distribution over percentage?
Yep. Good question, Niels. I guess predominantly because of the way that we've got that data coming in from EHAB. I don't think there's any reason, Josh, why we couldn't get it the other way around. Neither though is there. We've kind of maybe got a first pass of this integration, this ability set up to give those values in ranges based on the one method. But you know, it absolutely could be set up in a way to give both. I guess we'd need to make that an option on the export file then, though, Josh, right? But yeah. And then if you're familiar with risk analysis, which I'm hoping most people are, because I wasn't planning on getting into this in a huge amount of detail here, you know, but this is showing me that the project was originally due to finish. Let me just flip back. You know, my project right from the very outset was due to start the 1st of April, finish the 19th of October. I can see, you know, this is my deterministic date, the 19th of October, and I can see, you know, the different amounts of delay that I might get due to weather in this particular case, right? And I've got things like my P10, P50, and P90 lines on here. My P90 being out at 5th of November, which would be, you know, 13 days of contingency in this particular case. And I can look at things like my risk removal impact to see which of those different risks, which are activity types, I guess, really in this particular case, having the most impact, right? It's that site clearance ahead of the roofing that is having the biggest impact. And one of the things, you know, that's maybe quite nice here, right? I've got this is the project we've just been looking at. I could do a quick test, you know, what if I was to do that particular project with a different start, right? If you have got some flexibility. I think if I shift the timing of it, for example, so I think we were starting in April. If instead of starting in April, we were to go out to Jan, for example. So when you're creating a copy like this, a copy from an existing project, select which project, then ask, you know, which of those different things do you want to bring across? So I can bring all the schedule and all the risks, and just have another version of that project. Nice, easy way to do a little bit of what if analysis. I think it's just opened it. So the risk register will be populated with exactly the same risks. The schedule will be in there as well, so I can still see the same, you know, roofing, all the different activities. Obviously, the position of the activities will be 6-7 months later in here now. And we've got, like, pretty quickly another what if version of just shifting the schedule out a little bit, shifting that start time. And what does that mean? So get my notification, the risk analysis is just completed. And we can see in this particular case, I'm in particular looking at the difference between my deterministic date and my P90 date, which is this pessimistic contingency here. I can see in this particular case is 38 days. In the one that I ran previously, we could see that pessimistic contingency, the amount of allowance that you should be putting in for weather was 13 days, right? So you can see big differences from just shifting the start time in this particular case, right? Exactly the same schedule, exactly the same risks in the risk register. Just obviously, they've got different amounts of downtime depending on the period that they're operating in.